It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Mary Jo Foley's here. There is, as always, a lot to talk about. Some new features coming to Windows next month. Is this a big feature release for Windows 11? We'll find out. Microsoft's earnings report, it was a pretty good quarter. In fact, one number really stands out, 1.4 billion active Windows 10 and 11 users, plus some good news for Xbox fans. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 761, recorded Wednesday, January 26th, 2022. 1.4 billion served. Windows Weekly is brought to you by IT Pro TV. Are you looking to break into the world of IT? Get the introduction you need with IT Pro TV. Visit itpro.tv/Windows for an additional 30% off all consumer subscriptions for the lifetime of your active subscription when you use the code WW30 at checkout. And by Progress. Progress has the technology you need to secure, analyze, and integrate your applications, network, and processes. Find out more and download a free trial at progress.com/twit. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we get together and chat about Microsoft. There's lots to talk about this week. Mary Jo Foley is here, all about Microsoft.com, her ZDNet blog. Hello, Mary Jo.
Hello, Leo.
That sounds like a Rick Nelson song.
I know. Goodbye, Heart.
Goodbye, Heart. That Bosso...
Every week you say it, and that goes to
Mary Jo. Bosso Profundo man on the left, Mr. Paul Thurrott from Thurrott.com. And his books are at leanpub.com. And he is in Mexico City of this day, enjoying a beautiful Wednesday, it looks like.
Yeah, not a cloud in the sky.
Not a cloud in the sky.
It's sunny here, too. It's just 22 or so. But it's sunny.
22? You degrees?
That's too
degrees,
little numbers.
Fahrenheit.
Too few numbers.
Yeah.
It's 73-ish.
Too few numbers. Yes, it's too few numbers. We need more numbers. Earnings. Earnings are in. You want to talk about that first?
No.
I did, but Mary Jo buried the lead. How come?
Buried the lead, Mary Jo.
This is a bigger story, you guys.
Oh,
really?
Wow. Okay.
Windows 11. New features coming next month. But like what?
Like
very few of them.
Android. No, okay.
Android came out today. I did see that. Yes.
Yeah, yes. Android apps on Windows.
Yes.
But here's why this is interesting. Paul has been talking about this, and I've chimed in over the various shows saying at some point Microsoft's going to roll out new features for Windows 11 before the feature update comes at the end of the year, right? They're like queuing it up. And then today, suddenly, there's a blog post this morning really early that says, hey, next month, here's a bunch of features we're going to roll out to the mainstream, not to insiders.
I know this is not like me, but could I throw some cold water on this one?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, they did, right? They did make this announcement. Right. The thing is, what we're looking for is clarity, right? What we're looking for is some kind of definitive statement about what's going to happen.
Why do you think miracles are going to happen this year? Why do you think something new is going to happen?
Okay, but see, what we got was the promise of a public preview of a very limited number of features in February. End of sentence. There's no continuation to this. There's no, after a short period of testing with the public, we're going to release this to everyone who's running Windows 11. It's still possible that these features won't hit Windows 11 for most users until that feature update arrives in, say, October or whatever it is in the later part of the year.
Really?
Right?
Why do you think that? That's the opposite of what this says.
No, it's okay. Well, please do contradict me, because the thing that's happening in February is just a public preview.
No, so you've got to look
good.
at they worded this so confusingly,
Please prove me wrong.
A public preview of how you can use Android apps on Windows 11 is coming to the mainstream. But the other things they list, taskbar improvements with the call, mute, unmute, the weather on the taskbar, and the new Notepad, the new media player, those aren't in preview. Those are the actual final.
Those are happening. Okay, so maybe we should step through this real quick, because obviously, Android app support is huge. This was this was arguably the biggest thing they announced last June or whenever it was when they first announced Windows 11.
Yeah.
Didn't make it into the product, right? We've been testing it in the Windows Insider program. A very limited selection of apps, by the way, but whatever, it's there.
Yes.
So now it's going to be in preview in February. Okay, so maybe it doesn't hit until next October. In some ways, whatever. But if you look at the list of other things,
I know.
Off the top of my head, it's 3 features, small, and 2 apps, which are just updated through the store anyway. Windows 11 shipped in October in what I would call a horribly incomplete state. Should have launched with an entire new swath of apps, all updated, new UIs, new features, whatever. Didn't. And we're getting a new Notepad. And what was the other one?
Media player.
The media player. Oh, the thing no one ever uses anyway. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So the new generation Groove app. This is, I'm excited that they're doing something. Like you said, I've been talking about this, thinking about this, writing about this from day one. In fact, one of the earliest articles I wrote about Windows 11 was the disappointment of us not getting all those things they promised back in June, right?
Right.
But this is a very small selection of things.
It is.
Don't you think?
And yeah, I do. And I think the most confusing part of this whole thing is they don't say how you're going to get them, right? Like people are saying, oh, so we're going to get one big giant cumulative update that's basically like a feature update in February, and it's going to have all this. I'm like, nope. I don't think that's how it's going to go. I think some will be, like you're saying, the store for the 2 apps, right? Notepad and Media Player. But then the Android apps for Windows 11, are you going to get like a launcher from the store, and then are you going to get the Windows subsystem for Android like built in somehow through a cumulative update, or is it going to be a feature experience pack? Like I asked them today for clarification on this, and I've heard zero. Right?
Weird. They're usually so good about that.
I know, right?
Okay. Look, one of the other things we've been talking a lot about a lot over the past year or two is Microsoft's many avenues for updating the operating system, right? They've really significantly expanded it. I suppose in some ways it doesn't really matter, I guess, how we get these things. It's almost certainly, the non-app things are almost certainly going to come through Windows Update and be some form of cumulative update, right?
Right.
Or set of cumulative
assume.
Updates. I would assume, but I don't know, but that's how I assume. Based on what we see in the Windows Insider program, I think you're right about the Android app subsystem as well. Yep. It's basically going to be a store deliverable. You'll see an advertisement. It will, highlight that it's in preview or public preview or whatever the language is, and that's fine. It's fine.
Right.
It's going to be limited, probably, hopefully more apps than we see today, but available to people on what we'll call the stable channel, right?
Right. So that, of all the features they listed, the very few, like you said, this is the one to me that's very worrisome, the Android apps for Windows 11, right? Because like you're saying, right now, it's a very, very limited set of apps, like mostly games, right, that's available this way. If you want to read a really good story about what is there and what isn't, our friend Rich Woods wrote something on XDA developers, right? And he said, when they first announced this, there were 50 apps that were available through Amazon and Microsoft's partnership for this. Now there's fewer than that. There's 40-something apps, right?
Interesting.
And they're U.S. only. It's only for U.S. users. Again, here we go again with not supporting globally, right, for some reason. And how do you explain this to mainstream users who hear, oh, Android apps on Windows? So I can just get any Android app on Windows, right? But that's not how it's going to work, right?
Well, okay, but here's the good news. And like I said, I'm not super impressed with the volume of things they're delivering, in the near future to the public. That said, a public preview version of the Android subsystem for Linux or whatever. Yeah. I'm sorry, the Windows subsystem for Android.
Windows subsystem for Android, yep.
Right, and they're going to do that in the right way because based on what we've seen in the store, based on what we've seen in the Insider program. In other words, it's an advertisement in the store, which most people aren't going to see anyway. You have to opt into it. You look at it, you determine if you want it, and then you get it or you don't, right? Yep. And most people won't, and so that's fine. Like I'd rather have them do it that way than just throw it into the operating system. Right. And make
have it just show up for everybody. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and have like this ad saying, "Hey, get Android apps on Windows 11," which I hope they're not going to do, but I'm not ruling anything out.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, that sounds very plausible. Right.
Right. So I just feel like this is something that people who hear about it assume it means any Android app you want on Windows, and that is so not what this is, right? And I feel like it's kind of almost like Windows 10 and S mode all over again. Like people are going to have an assumption, oh, Android apps on Windows, I can run every single Android app on Windows. And then you go and it's like, no, actually not. You can't, right?
Yep. That's right.
As Dwindle says, though, the good news is you'll be able to get Candy Crush finally on Windows.
Thank goodness, right?
It's about time.
Everyone's waiting.
So I've been telling people on the radio show, correct me if I'm wrong, that they probably don't want to worry about Windows 11 and just stick with Windows 10. Because they got to 2025.
Oh, you mean people calling
customers. My customers, when they call, little doorbell rings, they go, ding, ding, ding. Hello.
People with a capital P.
Should I upgrade to Windows 11? And I say, well, it's nice, but I don't see any need
Well, actually, so maybe we could use some anecdotal data to prove a point, right? Like the whole world does, which is, I think Mary Jo has a story to this effect. I do as well. Mary Jo, actually my brother-in-law as well, kind of called me or texted me, or my wife just asked me, hey, I just got the Windows 11 advertisement in Windows 10. Should I upgrade? And then, that's a real moment of truth for me because these are normal people.
That was exactly the call. That was exactly the call.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I thought about it, and in both cases, I said, honestly, I think for your use cases, you will either not notice anything or you'll think it might look slightly prettier, and I don't think there's any harm to it. And in both cases,
it is pretty. I agree. I like how it's grown on.
The only harm is not being able to easily choose your browser still, right? That's
the Edge
one
thing.
area people need to be aware of.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So maybe that's the decision tree. Do you like Edge? Then fine. If you want to keep using something else, maybe not.
There are reasonably simple instructions on the little settings change you have to make to choose your other browser, right? It's not super difficult. Look, it's dumb. I don't want to. It is dumb what Microsoft has done, and it's user unfriendly for sure. But if you go into that, if you find your browser in that list of apps that are installed, and you make what you basically make are 2 file or document type associations and 2 protocols, and one of them is automatic. If you choose HTTPS goes with it.
Stop right there. I'm not going to say that.
Yeah,
on the radio.
normal people will never understand.
Protocol what?
No.
But isn't there a button at least you can push that will just make it kind of like it's the default browser now?
Like there was in Windows 10?
Yeah.
No, like there will be in Windows 11. So they're testing that now in the Insider program.
That's not out
but that's
yet.
not in the version that ships to consumers, right? I don't, honestly, I just coincidentally, sometime in the past week or 10 days or whatever it was, I literally just thought of it in passing. I think I walked by her computer or something. I said, hey, what do you think? Like, are there any issues? And she says, I haven't even noticed a single thing. She doesn't even notice it.
Yeah.
I think I married Mary Jo. I don't know what happened.
but that's a little weird.
Guys, most people won't understand, won't even notice anything. They might be like, oh, my taskbar is in the middle
now. The
now.
central start menu is a big change, isn't it? Maybe she didn't notice that.
No. Really? Do you even notice that? No one notices that.
I don't look over her shoulder and see how she works. But a lot of people, and myself included certainly, launch applications from the taskbar. I know she does that.
Yeah.
And I think of the start menu as being kind of a secondary interface. So in the Windows 10 days, when you had an all apps list constantly displayed on the left and the tiles area on the right, in the early days, like a lot of people, I would spend time kind of configuring those tiles the way I wanted them and position them and size them and do all that stuff. But what I found over time is I never really used it, so who cares? I use it as a secondary interface. I bring it up, I start typing the thing I want, it comes up and start search, and off I go. And I would imagine my wife, other people probably do the same thing. And so, the new start menu is different looking. It's centered. Yeah. It has less stuff going on for sure. It's not particularly configurable now, although they're apparently working on that. And for me, it doesn't matter. And so when I complain about the regressions in the start menu, I'm kind of doing that on behalf of normal people. In my case, it doesn't actually impact me because I never use it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Has the okay, so I do the same thing. I hit Windows key, start typing. Mm-hmm. I type update, for instance.
Yeah.
That's changed, though. Now update, instead of pulling up the program Windows Update, pulls up some weird shortcut. I mean, it hasn't.
Well, okay, no, the Start Search itself hasn't changed. Like if you type in something like
same thing,
Control Panel, you still get you get a list of things. I mean, in my case, I typed all of that. I just typed Control. So Control Panel is the best match. If you select that one time, it will always be the best match. So if it's a common word or whatever, it remembers that.
I don't know. That's the only thing I ever do in Windows is update. So
you know what it is. So
that's my only experience.
This is a classic kind of Mary Jo Paul thing, right? Mary Jo as the normal person, me as the person who overthinks things, and there's something wrong in my brain and I'm broken, and I obsess over these things, and I worry about them, and I try to think about how other people are going to be impacted by them, and then Mary Jo's like, I don't even notice, and maybe more people are like, I hope more people are like Mary Jo. I mean, honestly. My wife certainly is, and maybe it's okay, technical people or whatever you want to call us broken few, I worry about these things, talk about them, debate them, call Microsoft to task on them, Meanwhile, 99% of the world doesn't care.
Well, and I'll tell you the reason to do it is that annoying Windows upgrade pop-up.
Yeah.
And just to get rid of it, you mean?
Get rid of that. Stop bugging me.
Well, okay. So actually, I don't know if you could do it with that particular one, but any pop-up like that, like a suggested thing or whatever, there's a ... thing. You click that, it says stop showing me these things.
Okay.
Now, in the well, I'd have to see it to make sure it has it on that particular one. But in the case of Windows, the Windows 11 upgrade, eventually, well, no, maybe that's not true.
It's not going to bug me for the next 3 years, I hope.
We don't know.
That's what I was.
I asked them today. I said, when are you guys going to stop showing that pop-up, or are you never going to stop showing it? And I didn't get an answer. So
right. Yeah. The answer is, when are you going to just upgrade, Mary Jo?
I upgraded both my PCs right away because I figured it wasn't going to be a big change, and I was correct.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, my Windows 11 machine. It's pretty. I'm happy. You're right. It's just, and I guess that's what I'm telling them is, well, it's just cosmetic. If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Right. There's no one compelling thing that you would say, like, you really want this, so you have to upgrade.
But now maybe that'll be different if you want to run
What I'm looking at right now, I mean, think about just the basics here. I have a Zoom window that is windowed. Behind it, I can see a browser window that is maximized. So there's the only two applications I can see. And there's a taskbar at the bottom. So fundamentally speaking, the only difference between this and Windows 10 is that the taskbar is centered. Right? I mean, a couple of the icons are a little different, and obviously I click on that stuff over in the corner, it's a little different. But I mean, fundamentally, and the window corners on the Zoom thing are curved, which you can barely see. Maybe that's not a big.
But that's why I say don't, because it's just cosmetic and it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Right.
On the other hand, if Microsoft's going to bug you every minute to do it, I guess.
Microsoft would list a laundry list of things that would make you want to upgrade. All the little performance improvements, all the little changes, whatever. But
so I'm going to change my advice. I'm going to say, go ahead and do it. It's not a big difference. I mean, installing a new version of Windows for people is fraught with peril.
It is. Yes. You usually think, like, look at all the things that are broken or could go wrong, and is it really ready? Right.
That's based on out-of-date information, right? So Windows has gotten much better at updating itself than it was back in the 9X, 2000 XP days, whatever.
Yeah.
Windows 11, despite the name, is really just a cumulative update for Windows 10. It's just another version of Windows 10. So it's a small thing.
Agree.
There are things missing in Windows 11 that might be problematic for some users, but when you do an upgrade from Windows 10, they come along with it, right? So things like Skype that are no longer included, 3D stuff like Paint 3D, whatever, those are not in Windows 11. But if you upgrade from Windows 10, those will come forward with you. So those are other things. So it's, they did that the right way. I think that's friendly. You don't want to take stuff away. Remember, I don't remember what version of Windows, but in the past you would get a little text file on the desktop and say, hey, here's all the stuff we took away from you. Have fun.
So yeah, I mean, it really, in other words, it's a flip of the coin. It doesn't really matter one way or the other.
Well, you could tell people, look, you can upgrade if you want, just don't call me back.
That's the real problem.
I told everybody in my family who's asked me who's gotten it offered to them, I'm like, yeah, I think it wouldn't be a problem. And nobody has called me and said, like, why did you say that? Like, everybody's like, oh, yeah, it seems fine. Like, I like the wallpaper. It's cool with the ribbon thing. It's nice. I'm like, yep, there you go.
The ribbon thing.
That's it.
The ribbon thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I call it the toilet paper thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Like nobody has said to me, "Oh, I can't figure out the start menu." Like when I'm like, did anybody in my family even use the start menu for anything? Like, did they notice like live tiles are on?
I would think the less sophisticated users are more likely to use the start menu, but maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know.
I feel like
everyone has their ways, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
I use the start menu for two things. Like when I don't have a program pinned to my taskbar and I'm like, where is that? I click on the start menu and do a search in the start menu, which I don't need to do, but it's like a habit.
It's the slowest possible way to find a program is the start menu.
It totally is. I know. But it's just like a memory thing. Like that's how I do it. And and then the other reason is if I've opened a document recently and I can't remember where it is, like I open the start menu and they're all my recent documents pinned right there. I'm like, okay, there it is. Right. That's it. Yeah. That's how I use it. I use Windows in the most unsophisticated way. For me, it's a tool to do my job, and it's nothing. Even though I write about Microsoft, I just use it in the most simple way, right? Like
unsophisticated is a tough word because that's the right way to approach this. It really is a launcher for the things you're there for, right?
That's what I feel like. Yeah.
Those things are not there in Windows other than basic file management, whatever. Yeah. But you're there to run applications. That's what matters.
Yeah. Right. And that's what Evil John says in the Discord. He says, all I know is I run Steam and I'm done.
Yeah.
right. And it works. Yeah. So exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So anyway, I'm also confused about what you just agreed upon. Because some new features next month. Yes?
Okay.
Not just a preview.
So Mary Jo apparently has a much better handle on why don't you reiterate what you just told me?
Yeah, right. So the only one of the new features they listed in the blog post today that's still going to be considered preview is Android apps on Windows 11. That's considered a preview. The other ones, the call, mute, and unmute from the taskbar, easier window sharing, weather on the taskbar, and the two apps, those aren't going to be previews. Those are just going to be
those are
final,
just happening.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, weather on the taskbar not being there was probably holding back hundreds of millions of users.
Definitely.
This will be the floodgates that Microsoft needs.
Yeah. No, the reason they're putting weather, right? No, they're putting weather on the taskbar to try to get people to figure out how to open widgets and to use widgets. Like they want people to do that.
By the way,
because people will click
what
weather.
A betrayal! What a betrayal is it when you click on weather, expecting to see weather, and you find out about what Kim Kardashian's doing. Right? Like, I don't understand this interface.
It launches news? Is that what happens?
It launches that widgets interface, right? So, by the way, weather is part of it. I'm being sarcastic.
But other stuff is too.
Other stuff is too, including, lots of, I don't even want to read what's in here today, including lots of the terrible things.
Rich content.
Yeah, yes.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yes.
People magazine-centric content.
Yeah. No, I'm telling you, that's why they put the weather thing on the taskbar, because they're like, you know what? Not enough people are trying widgets. They may not know that they're there, and we get a signal somehow for people to open it, right?
To be fair, I will say that information not being in the taskbar is a regression in Windows 11, because in Windows 10, the analog of this thing, the news and information thing, whatever it was called, I think it was just called news and information, did have an optional weather display in the taskbar that was on by default. And when they switched to widgets in Windows 11, that went away. Widgets became just an icon. And so, I'm okay with that. I know some people want that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No,
it's not a major new functional addition. It doesn't turn this thing into Windows 11 version 2 or whatever.
No.
What they should do is just put a little clippy in there bouncing up and down saying, click me, click me, click me, click me, click me.
Yep, pretty much.
That's really what Windows needs, I think.
Yeah.
Actually, that's what the notification windows are for, Leo. But yes, it does. It does have that.
Yeah. No, the only reason I thought this was interesting today and kind of a big deal was we have been wondering if and when they would launch new features independently of the thing they call the feature update that's coming in around October. And finally, like today, it just came out of nowhere. Like, boom, hey, we're doing it next month. It's coming. That's it.
It did literally come out of nowhere. That's true.
It did. Yep. Yeah, they attached it to a Panos Panay blog, which was meant to kind of build on some of the things they said during earnings, right, about acceptance of Windows, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and kind of how that's growing or not growing.
There's actually all kinds of things to talk about. That post is a mess of data.
It is.
It is all over the map.
But a lot of the data is just like earnings. It's percentages of growth based on a number they don't give you, so you really don't know what it means, right?
That's right. That's right.
Like something grew 6 times. 6 times from what?
6x.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Wow,
true.
what growth?
That's true.
Yeah, like what they said on the earnings call yesterday, like, yeah, Windows is taking market share. I'm like, from who?
I know, from what? Exactly. Exactly. From what? From unsupported versions of Windows?
Wait,
what are you talking about?
Mac? Are you guys
From
Mac
ourselves.
Chromebooks?
From
Like,
ourselves
I don't
is
know.
what we are.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what they meant, like from Windows 7 and Windows 8.
No, they have to have
we're
meant the
taking
Mac.
market
I
share.
will say, here's the one data point that came out of Canalys, IDC, and Gartner. Apple sold as many Macs in the last quarter as they did the year before, within 1 percentage point. So they barely grew, but the industry grew almost double digits. So that means Windows did, in fact, gain on the Mac. Apple sold more Macs. They still grew. But from a share percentage, PC makers now have more of the market than they did a year ago. So
but why didn't they say that, right? Like, we grew in share compared to the Mac.
Mary Jo, what I just said is clear, and what they said can't be clear. That's how they communicate.
No, that was me on the earnings call. Like when they said we took share with Windows, and me yelling at the screen from
it's in the
what?
transcript. It literally says parenthetically, Mary Jo Foley screams.
I was screaming a lot during the earnings call for many reasons, but that was one.
Yeah. We took Windows gain share, or whatever the phrase was. Yeah.
Yeah,
just
Windows
classic.
gain share. I'm like, from.
Yep. Look, I should look. This still it always bothers me. This is the type of thing my wife does not appreciate. I just complain about the same thing over and over again. She's like, if you're expecting clarity where there's never been clarity, what is wrong?
Why are
with
you?
you?
What's with this nutty expectation?
I think he thinks it's a new year, so there's going to be new clarity or something.
Look. This post answered part of the question, right?
But if the update's going to come, some updates are coming independently of.
Like you said, we don't know how. We don't know if this is it. So it's February. I was of the opinion that very strongly that they would, out of band, so to speak, or out midstream, whatever you want to call it, update Windows 11. I am also still of the opinion they will do it multiple times. And I was of the opinion that the first thing we would see, the first or only, whatever, would happen very early in the year. In fact,
Look at you being right.
Well, no, it's the 26th. Honestly, I thought it would be much closer to the beginning of the month.
Oh, really?
For whatever that's worth. But that was my that was my opinion, belief, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
So okay, February.
This is kind of insider baseball, but I think it might help some people who I've had people ask me today. So does this constitute a feature update, even though they said there'd only be one feature update? No. And the reason it doesn't is very kind of esoteric, but when Microsoft calls something a feature update, it resets the support clock, right? And so if they don't call something a feature update, you're still within the support window that they already outlined for the last feature update. I know.
You're right. You're 100% right. This is really semantics is what it is.
It is.
And I guess legal semantics in some ways. But, Microsoft has confused the language around what things are, This is a version upgrade, which I think, a feature update, I should say, is a version upgrade. It does, like you said, reset the clock on support. It is something that's different from an update. And by the way, it doesn't just mean a couple of new features or X number of new features. It's a cumulative thing. It's the next milestone. So if it's a month later and you buy a new PC, when you upgrade, that's what you get. That's the thing that you get.
Yeah.
A feature update, lowercase, could mean anything. Us getting mute, unmute in the taskbar, isolated as its own little thing, is, in plain English, a feature update. We have gotten a new feature, right? Or an updated feature or whatever. But yes, because they use this very general term to describe something that is actually an important thing in the world of Windows, we have to dance around language all the time.
Yeah. Right, upgrade versus update versus cumulative update versus feature update. Yeah, so many things it could be.
By the way, it occurs to me now that you've told me that these updates, these three things, are coming in February, not in preview. Yep. That suggests that will happen on the second Tuesday in February, whatever that date is.
That's
right?
what I wonder too. Patch Tuesday.
Right?
Yeah,
I would think so.
Right. That would be my guess. But again, it doesn't say that in the blog.
No, why would it?
Say when.
That would be...
No, it doesn't say when
would be
in
too
February
clear.
or which vehicles or anything. Yeah, it doesn't say.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Right.
We'll see.
Right. Yeah.
It's
The other thing-
amazing I'm not in an institution by this point
It
in my
is
life.
kind of. This is why it's good you're in Mexico thinking about fatty tuna.
Getting some
right
sun and eating sushi. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Do you want to talk more about the rest of that blog post, though? Because, like you said, there's a lot of
there's
things
many.
in
I
the
wrote 3
blog
posts about it eventually.
You did? Okay.
Because the more you go through it, the more there is.
Right. So, something else that struck me in this blog post is, like we said, there's a lot of metrics in here that
Right.
you don't really know what they mean. Like Windows 11 is helping drive 3 times more traffic to the new Microsoft Store. 3 times what number we don't know, right? Engagement with people spending 40% more time on their PC. Like there's lots of numbers like that, right? But
Hey, by the way, just sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
could the pandemic have anything to do with that? I mean, is it literally
Right.
Windows 11? There's nothing inherent in Windows 11 that makes the store more attractive to a normal person, right? It does.
No,
It's
that's
not more
true.
in your face. It's not a better app. It's slightly restyled or whatever. But I mean, are we just stuck at home now? And it's been so long, we're starting to fiddle around with our computers a little bit because we're bored. I mean,
That's probably
yeah,
true.
right? It is true.
I'm just wondering. I mean,
Yeah. No, there's another line in there, though, that I have asked for clarity on, and I have heard nothing at all. So they said Windows 11 is beginning to enter its final phase of availability, putting Microsoft ahead of its initial plan of mid-2022. So I said, what does that sentence mean? Like, what do you mean by that? Do you mean you're not going to do any more prompts for people? Like you've decided every machine that is going to have a good upgrade experience has got it now or is about to have it? Or does this mean something else? And I don't think the communications team knows because I've bugged them twice. I'm like, what does that line mean? And they're like,
I don't think they want to
talk
talk about this, right? Because obviously, because like John Cable would be the guy who explains this kind of thing.
Yeah,
What he will say is we have a very staged approach to delivering Windows 11 as an upgrade to existing users.
Yeah.
You examine all these metrics. We look at different things, what your configuration is, what applications you run, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
We use, there's a lot of math. Yeah. And Microsoft internally will always have a schedule for whatever the upgrade is. In this case, the upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11, which is a free upgrade, something they offer electronically, they advertise, et cetera, et cetera. What they're admitting now is that we originally thought we would be done with this process by mid-2022. If mid-2022 had come and Microsoft had not met this internal goal, we would never have heard about it, right? They would have met it in the third quarter this year or the fourth quarter, and we would have heard about, the upgrade is complete, we're done. But now what they're saying is they will complete it. Not that they have completed it, right? That they will. That this thing has gone faster than anticipated. Now that sounds, by the way, this kind of thing's going to come up again on this podcast. That sounds like an amazing, positive piece of news. But the reality is Windows 11 is not that impressive of an upgrade, technically speaking. Like I said, it's just a cumulative update. This is something they could have released almost at any time. And just any month, whatever. I mean, yes, it upgrades the UI and all this stuff. So there's that kind of confusion or that addition. But this is not a big deal. This is, from an upgrading perspective. So what they're celebrating is we've spent 5-6 years getting Windows to update properly, and now it's working on a very minor update. It's kind of like when they would celebrate the deployment of Windows 10 version 2004 or 21H1 or whatever. It's like, yeah, great. You got that thing out really quick. Yeah, of course you did. There's nothing to it. It's not like those creator update things we used to get back in the day, 2016, 2017, whatever. Yeah. It's a much smaller upgrade than those things. So, yeah, of course it went better. It should, whatever. Anyway, so
I just want to know what that means, though. Like you're in the final phase. So if people don't have it, what's going to happen, right? Like you're not obligated to get off of Windows 10 and go to 11, but they're calling this the final phase of their push, right? And I'm like, what does that mean?
It's probably not literal upgrades, but rather it will at some time in the near future be offered to basically the entire user base because we now know that this upgrade will work well for everybody. I think that's what it is. Not that the entire user base is going to Windows 11, because of course they're not. By the way, the one little figure we never got, all these numbers, and there were dozens of them. How many people are running Windows 11
right.
on PCs? Never mentioned that.
No.
The one thing they did mention with regards to a hard number, 1.4 billion people are now running Windows 10 and 11. Now,
combined.
That's another one.
Right.
Sounds pretty good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
However, I just want to give you some numbers. The last time we got a number for a total Windows user base from Microsoft was October 2018, right? So over 3 years ago. That number was 1.5 billion. It's a bigger number. Now, we're comparing two slightly different things. That's the entire Windows user base. This is just Windows 10 and 11. But how many versions of Windows are actually supported right now? 3. Well, and a little bit of Windows 7 in the enterprise.
They changed the metric too, right? Like you're talking there, the 1.5 billion, wasn't that PCs? And the new numbers they talk about are monthly active users. Right?
No, it's devices. It's devices.
Is it devices?
Yeah, which is PCs, right? So here's the thing. It's very clear that there are some number of millions of PCs out in the world running unsupported versions of Windows or Windows 7 PCs and enterprises that are paying for that extra support. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that probably makes up the difference. It's unlikely, given the PC buying boom of the past 2 years, that there were fewer PCs running Windows today than there were 3 years ago, we'll call it. Right? Yep. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. However, because this was a news item of that day, it seems odd to me that they didn't put that in perspective. So,
what was the number before?
1.5 billion.
Oh.
Well, the closer number to compare it to is last April, Windows 10 was 1.3 billion monthly active devices, right?
That's right.
So yesterday's number was 1.4 billion monthly active devices, but that's Windows 10 and 11. That's it. That's all that they're measuring.
That's fine now. Because those things are the same thing, right? So this suggests that this tells us, we know this. I mean, Windows PC sales, are up, right? They have risen now for a year and a half or whatever. So that 100 million new computers came online. Some running most of them running Windows 10, some of them running Windows 11, and so that actually does explain that. That's fine. Like that's really good growth. Because I know people will wonder about this, I feel obligated to say. Last number we got from Google with Android was 2.5 billion active Android users worldwide in August 2021. So we'll probably get a new number at Google I/O in May. And the latest numbers from Apple, which are literally from 1 year ago now, because Apple next week will announce their earnings and we'll probably get new numbers. So these numbers are going to be higher. 1 billion iPhone users and 1.65 billion total devices running Apple platforms, right? So that's where Windows 10 and 11 compare to the two biggest, I call them personal computing platforms that are available today. Mm-hmm. It's in the ballpark, right? It's in the running.
Yeah, but there's no way to tell from the way they talked about the number how many of those 1.4 billion devices are on Windows 11, and they don't want to.
Yep. No,
they don't want you to.
Because that number is
tell.
probably pretty low.
Really? What would low be?
Well, Windows 11 came out in October. It shipped on a fairly limited number of PCs, by the way, right?
Right.
So it's reasonable to expect that most of the computers bought over the holiday selling period were probably running Windows 10. By the way, it's also reasonable to say most of those probably qualify for the Windows 11 upgrade by now. We don't know how many people have upgraded. There is a vague, I'm not going to be able to find this off the top of my head. One of the other little vague statistics in here is that people are upgrading to Windows 11 faster than they did to Windows 11, right? But they didn't say what the time frame was, and they didn't give a percentage. I don't think they give a percentage. There's too many of these stories. I don't know. There's
you
too
mean
many
faster than
data points.
They did to Windows 10, right? Is what you mean?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Windows. It says Windows customers are accepting the Windows 11 upgrade offer in Windows Update, presumably, at twice the rate Microsoft saw for Windows 10. Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't know what to say. But not all
devices qualify, right? So that number is
what are we talking about? You mean in Windows 10 during its first 3 to 4 months in the market, or what are we talking about here? It doesn't give you any, like we keep saying, the data is very
partial.
Vague. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of stupid numbers. 50% growth in people who plan to use PCs for creativity, gaming, or work. What other use cases are there for a PC? Anyway, okay, I know there are other, but I mean, isn't that most of it? I mean, what are we talking about here? It's really strange how they continue
the wording
to
is
communicate.
Odd.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, and they snuck that 1.4 billion number into the earnings yesterday.
I know.
Kind of like towards the end, like really downplayed it. They were like, "Oh yeah, we got 1.4 billion."
No, I know. Why would you write a post called 1.4 billion? It's a big number.
And they just kind of like mumbled it out, and I'm like, "Wait, did they just say how many Windows users there are?" Yep,
crazy. And by the way, if you're not tired of the numbers nonsense yet, we still haven't even gotten to earnings.
We get lots more numbers.
There's a lot of numbers.
But before numbers, let's talk Pluton.
Yeah. Okay. So at CES, sometime over a year ago, Microsoft announced the Microsoft Pluton security chipset, which we discussed and displayed our ignorance about a couple weeks ago. Yes, what we do know about it is that it is or will be built into microprocessor architectures from Intel, AMD, and Qualcomm. Although, by the way, Intel has a statement very recently saying, I don't think we need to do this. We already have a thing that is this in our own chips that we made.
Right?
Well, no, not TPM, but they have a name for it. It's like the Intel security something. It's again, the primary difference between Pluton or this Intel thing and TPM is that it's built into the chipset. There isn't a communications channel between it and a separate chipset. So that is more secure, apparently, whatever. The other big difference is Microsoft makes it, right? So they have to get buy-in from the chip makers for them to do it. It apparently did, although, like I said, as of this past week, who can say? Well, I guess we'll see what happens. And because it's Microsoft, I think we have to bring up the open source thing where now we're seeing the same fears in the Linux/open source community that we saw in 2002, 2003, when Microsoft started talking about things like Palladium and then TPM, where they said, you're doing this for security, yeah, sure, but you're really doing it to keep Linux off of PCs. So here's what we just found out. Two things. One, Pluton can be disabled. So if you buy a PC with Pluton built into the chipset, you can disable it. Linux is not Pluton compatible. Microsoft has shown no interest in making it Linux compatible and has said that, by the way. But you can turn it off. So we don't have this, actually the same real world fear that we had back, say 20 years ago almost, is not there today, although people are still complaining about it. Two, and perhaps more interesting, Lenovo, the company who advertised itself as being the first company, PC maker, to ship Pluton compatible computers, has said it will ship those computers with Pluton disabled by default.
That's hysterical.
It is.
Now you got to wonder, why?
Wait. Do you remember when Microsoft put the blog post out about this? They said there are 3 ways you can use Pluton, and the third was OEMs can opt to ship with the chip turned off. And I'm like, that's weird. They put that in the blog post, and now we know why they did, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, but we know why they did, because Lenovo and maybe other PC makers are going to ship those PCs with it disabled. But then the question becomes, well, why? Why is it disabled? Right. Do they know something we don't know? Is there some incompatibility there with existing software? Probably. I don't know. So, this is a really weird way to undermine an announcement. The Lenovo PCs in question, notably, are all AMD based. Like I said, Intel just kind of came out and said, this might not be necessary for our computers. We already have our own thing in here that does the same thing. So hopefully Microsoft and Intel are working on some standard that these things are compatible and basically do the same thing or whatever. Because, TPM was made by an outside third-party consortium. It's an industry standard, essentially. It wasn't designed by Microsoft, but Microsoft did back it and talked about making it a requirement for Longhorn. And, we went into Windows Vista, whatever. But, it's not like it's 6 months later. CES was like 2 weeks ago, I guess, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Exactly.
This just happened. It was a major announcement. So now it's not. Yeah, it's not going to be by default. Interesting.
Pluton, if you want it.
Who turns it on? Admins? Like who actually is responsible for turning it on?
It's in the BIOS, as we still call it for some reason, even though we haven't had a BIOS in a computer in probably 20 years. But it in the firmware, whatever you want to call it. So it's an option in the firmware. Intel obviously has their management software, and Microsoft has management control software on the other end. So yes, I assume that's a feature you could configure as an admin for the PCs that go out to your workforce, yes.
Yeah.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves here because not one of these things has shipped yet. And so far, nobody seems to be having much interest in it.
They don't ship till May, right? Even the Lenovo ones, wasn't it May? Yeah.
I think it is May, yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. And because I know you want to talk numbers. You want to talk
numbers.
Fiscal year 2022.
Making the numbers fun.
Q2, making them fun.
We're going to invent businesses that don't exist. We're going to compare things to things that we don't know what they are. It's fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Watch Paul and Mary Jo try to make sense of all of that stuff in just a moment. First, however, a word, if you don't mind, from IT Pro TV. I know a lot of you tuning into our show are interested in IT as a career. But you maybe don't know exactly how or where to get started. I am here to tell you there's one place and one place only. You should go straight to IT Pro TV. IT Pro TV has engaging, fun, complete, up-to-date streaming video that you can watch anywhere on your computer, your phone, on your TV via Roku or Apple TV. It's just great. Their edutainers are experts in the field, but they're there because of their enthusiasm, their passion, and their ability to kind of entertain while they inform. And that's what you want. If you need those certificates to get that first gig, this is the place to go. If you're already in IT and you want to recertify or stay up to date, this is the place to go. It's a good month, too, if you're interested in IT, to go to IT Pro TV, because January is all about getting started in IT month. So you'll have a great start to the new year. If you want to dip your toes into IT, check out the following courses you can get started with: CompTIA's ITF Plus and A Plus certs. I should mention, parenthetically, IT Pro TV is the official video training partner of CompTIA. So these are kind of the official courses. Linux Essentials, Microsoft 365. This is MS-900. The From the Bench series this month, hands-on PC build. That's kind of fun. That's more for your enjoyment, right? Cisco CCT routing and switching, that's more for your cert, 100-490. Although, I don't know, maybe you love this stuff. If you're an Apple person, Apple Certified Support Professional, ACSP, that's another cert, Mac OS 11 focused. If you're worried that learning IT could be boring, do not worry. IT Pro TV specializes in making IT learning fun, entertaining, and of course, informative, educational. All the courses are in 20 to 30-minute increments. It means you can watch it during lunch whenever it's convenient. Just the right length for my short attention span. 7 studios, 5 days a week. It's Monday through Friday. You can watch them film live. You can chat with them live, just like we do. They have the content that they make goes from studio to library in 24 hours. That's how they keep their content library absolutely fresh. Because you know what? The tests change. The software versions change. There's new software. There's new certs. So they work hard to make sure it's exactly what you need, up to date. You can also prepare for your exams. They have virtual labs. They have practice tests. They have monthly webinars that are free to catch up, get more insight into the world of IT. It kind of is a way to kind of get to know the culture, the ideas, the things people are talking about in IT. It's really great. If you are looking to break into the world of IT, get the introduction you need with IT Pro TV. Website, itpro.tv/Windows. And please use that /Windows so they know you saw it on Windows Weekly. itpro.tv/Windows. And if you want an additional 30% off any consumer subscription, as long as you stay active forever, right? If you want, use the code WW30. WW30. An additional 30% off the lifetime of your active subscription. IT Pro TV, this is such a great place to go. Check it out. IT Pro TV, build or expand your IT career and enjoy the journey along the way. itpro.tv/Windows. And don't forget that offer code, WW30. All right. Earnings, were they yesterday? Was it yesterday that was earnings day? Mm-hmm. It was good, as I remember. The top line, the earnings were good.
Very good.
Wasn't bad.
Good money. Not so bad. Yeah.
Yep.
It was the first time Microsoft surpassed $50 billion in a quarter.
They're going to need it because they got to save up to buy Activision.
They do. Yeah, they do. $51.7 billion in revenues. This is their Q2 for fiscal 2022. Our favorite metric, the Microsoft Cloud, formerly known as the Commercial Cloud. You know, that weird bucket of services that they put together, Azure, Office 365, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365, some of the Power Platform, some LinkedIn. That number was up to 22.1 billion, right? So 22 billion is how much of that 51 billion they say is from business cloud services.
Yeah, two things to that. So this bouillabaisse of Microsoft Cloud businesses is almost half of their revenues, right? Which I think is what is the point, right? They want to drive that home. See, we said we were a cloud business. We're a cloud business. Also, up 32% year over 32%. Just as a random fact, not a factoid, this is a fact. Microsoft has a lot of growth numbers. All of their businesses, their major 3 business units experience growth. All of their major product lines experienced growth, all of them. All of them but one experienced double-digit growth in this quarter. How is this possible for a company that has been around since, 1976, right? Is in many ways, look, I mean, they're not IBM, I get it, but I mean, they're also not Apple or Google, right? They're not new and exciting, and I know Apple's not really that new either, but, this is amazing. I keep saying this, and I do mean this sarcastically. I'm not trying to say this is a serious thing, but the pandemic is the best thing that ever happened to this company.
Pretty much. Right. Work from home.
Crazy growth. Crazy growth.
It is. Although, if you were watching the earnings call yesterday, which happens at 5:30 Eastern, as soon as the Microsoft numbers came out, their stock tanked. Not tanked, but like really dropped, right? And everybody's like, wait a minute, this is an amazing earnings report. What happened? So there was a chart in their earnings deck that showed a category, another made-up category that we don't really know what's in it, Azure and other cloud services, right? So we don't, it's not Office 365 in there, but there's some other Azure services, but not all of them mixed in. That number was 46% growth, and the last few quarters it's been 50. It's been 50. So
how?
Yeah, all right.
All right, guys. So you got to remember, for several quarters in a row, this is years ago, Azure grew 70%. Pretty routinely. Yeah. Right. And as that number started to fall, as it must for a mature business, right?
Yeah.
People are freaking out. I just want to remind everyone, 46% growth. Now, they might be padding the numbers a little bit there because you actually made a really good point there. They typically have put other cloud services in with server. And I think they've done that to bolster server a little bit, frankly. But if you look at the way they describe it this quarter, it's server and cloud services and Azure and other cloud services. So once again, we have no idea what this weird mix is, why something might be here or there. We don't even know what the makeup is. But I feel like they've bolstered. I think that, like I said, we push cloud because that drives the stock up. Yeah. Analysts keep freaking out because Azure growth is slowing to mid double digits, by the way, but whatever. Okay.
Right.
And maybe to prevent this impact from being worse, they've started bundling other technically non-Azure services into the Azure number to make that slow down, to make the slowing slow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, we don't know what's in that other cloud services. Like, we know it's not Office 365 and it's not Dynamics. Right. It's not those. It's services, obviously, that run on Azure. But those other services I just mentioned run on Azure. So I'm like, how are they picking and choosing which things are in this bucket? I don't know. And they won't say what's in this bucket.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said it. I mean, there are 3 business units at Microsoft. 2 of them are primarily cloud-based. Mm-hmm. Office 365, Microsoft 365, or in the other one. Right, so that can't be part of what's bolstering Azure. So I think with commercial cloud / Microsoft Cloud, they're doing a little bit of juggling here to balance things out, frankly. Mm-hmm. But we don't know, because how could we know? They don't tell us what we need to know. So we can only guess.
My favorite metric of the entire call, and only enterprise people will care or understand why I think this is interesting. Okay. Azure Arc tripled, their customer base tripled year over year. So the reason this is interesting is Azure Arc is the way Microsoft talks about multi-cloud and how you can manage their services running on other clouds like Google and Amazon, right? But they've never given any indication of how big is the market for that or how many customers have used it. And now we say, okay, the base has tripled. We don't know what the base was, right?
They still haven't, Mary Jo.
No, but they did say thousands, plural, of customers are using it. I'm like, okay, this is the first time I've ever seen any number, because I always ask analysts, I'm like, do you know any customers using Azure Arc? Not like I know every enterprise customer Microsoft has and could call them up and be like, hey, using Azure Arc, right? But I was always curious, because this is something they pushed super hard, and it was a big introduction for them maybe like 2 Ignites ago. And I'm like, is anyone using this thing? The answer is thousands, plural. Okay. Now we have something to go on there.
So
yeah, I'm like, Azure Arc mentioned in the call. Nice.
There were a lot of weird mentions in the call, by the way. I'll get to some of them later. But broad strokes, right? Microsoft has the 3 business units: Intelligent Cloud, more personal computing, and productivity and business processes. Intelligent Cloud is the part of the business that includes Azure. It's the biggest part.
Yes.
$18.3 billion in revenues, 26% growth. More personal computing, which is Windows, Surface, and Xbox, came in second, if you will. $17.5 billion. Yes.
May I add something there?
Yeah, of course.
During the last call they had, Amy Hood really was putting cold water on the likelihood that Surface was going to even be out of the red. Like, she was like, yeah, it's going to be a terrible quarter for Surface, like really bad. And Windows, it's going to be okay, right? So, and then suddenly, boom.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. So that's one of the things I do definitely want to dive into. Just real quick, though, productivity and business processes, $15.9 billion. 19% growth. So you mentioned Azure Arc. The thing that stuck out for me, Surface Laptop got a mention in there. Yeah, so this is what's weird. Yep. A year ago, this quarter 1 year ago, Microsoft's Surface business hit $2 billion in revenues for the first time ever. It became a $2 billion business. This past year, I don't remember the exact timing, but we'll call it right before this quarter or right in the beginning of this quarter, Microsoft had its biggest Surface product launch of all time. They updated or introduced new PCs across the board and updated every mainstream device they make except for one, Surface Laptop. Surface Laptop is the only primary product they have that didn't get updated. This is a weird product because Surface Laptop 3 and 4, which is the most recent version still, are the ones that have come with AMD processors. And most notably, those processors have always been a generation behind for some reason. This was a big problem for Surface Laptop 3. It's much less of a problem for Surface Laptop 4 because the chipset that's in there is fine. It's a good chipset.
Yeah.
They called out Surface Laptop. Despite the fact that they announced several other Surface computers, the one that did this was Surface Laptop, the thing that hadn't been updated since the spring, almost a year ago now. But Surface is also unique because I mentioned earlier, remember that every business in Microsoft grew double digits except one? That one is Surface. Surface only grew 8% by revenue. Yeah. That means, by the way, it's still a $2 billion business because if it grew 8% from $2 billion last year, it's $2 billion plus 8% of $2 billion, whatever that is. Yeah. Right. So that's good. I mean, it's good, but not the growth I saw. I don't remember the growth figure from last year, but I think it was 30%. It was pretty high, whatever it was. Yeah. So that was the thing that stuck out for me. Of all the stuff they talked about, I was like, wait, Surface Laptop? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. They called it out in the deck. They called it out. Like when I said to them, "What? So you guys said Surface was going to have a bad quarter. What happened? Like you actually had a good quarter." And they said Surface Laptop, right, that sold way better. And we got our hands on more product to sell. So, they were predicting chip shortages and this and that and component shortages, right? And so somehow they managed to get their hands on enough to make more product and fill demand. Okay, so that might be why Surface Laptop kind of lagged and then caught up in the quarter. I see. They had a lot. Maybe they had a lot of orders for it, right?
Since we're discussing this, I'll just also point out that the other weird thing about Surface over time has been, Surface is meant to be innovative and new form factors and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And then over time, of course, they released a laptop, and it's like, oh, look, 30 years after the first laptop, Microsoft's invented a laptop, But the reality is they need a laptop, right? This is the mainstream device. It's the one everyone buys. It's the MacBook Air of Windows. I mean, of course, they have to make this thing. But, all the numbers we've ever gotten, not from Microsoft, right, because they never release anything like this, but from third parties. AdDuplex, for example, it looks at usage of different Surface devices. Hasn't done it in a while, but in the past when they have, Surface Laptop is not one of the best-selling Surface devices. It wasn't. Historically, the tablet form factors, Surface Pro, Surface Go, Surface Lap, Surface 3 back in the day or whatever, those are the best-selling devices by far. Everything else is way off at the other end of the chart. So Surface Laptop has done better than things like, Surface Book or whatever, Surface Studio, of course. But it was never the volume leader. And I've never understood that. Surface Laptop is a beautiful device. It's almost perfect as a laptop. They've got the right sizes.
There's more competition in that arena than there is in the 2-in-1.
For sure. And also, AdDuplex measures things in a kind of an odd way, right? Like they don't measure like all sales of all PCs.
No, of course, no. They're looking at app usage and they can see what's running them and so forth. No, but that's the best we have. I mean, that's what we have.
I know we don't have anything else, right?
Just in that context, so I was fascinated to see Surface Laptop called out, a device that hasn't been updated in almost a year, unlike everything else they sell, and this is one that hasn't historically been near the top of the sales charts, and yet that was the one they called out. I love it. That's in many ways my favorite Surface. It's the one I think people should buy.
Yep.
If they're going to get Surface.
I will just say laptops work on laps and just leave that.
So the name isn't just cute. It
isn't just
it's
cute.
Practical. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe people have finally come to realize lapability matters.
It ain't a laptop if you can't keep it in your laptop.
That's right.
That's right.
They should put the Alcantara on the bottom so it doesn't just slide off your legs.
Google kind of did that with their
the little ribbed bottom on the
Go. Yeah, it has nubs on the bottom.
That's not a bad idea. That's fine.
All right. Anything else? What else?
Real quick, just because it's in the notes. We have just some data points, right? So Microsoft taught Halo Infinite, which we'll talk about a little bit later, 20 million active users. Forza Horizon 5, by the way, not far behind, 18 million. They reiterated the Game Pass number, which we had heard last week, 25 million. 56.4 million Microsoft 365 consumer users. That still doesn't seem super high to me, but by the way, up 19% year over year. That's actually really big. 209 million seats of enterprise mobility and security, which is basically what we'll call Intune, up 28%. And then the biggest one, of course, Mary Jo, the most important one.
Hadoop.
Yep.
How's Hadoop
Azure.
usage? Azure.
It didn't make the earnings report, curiously.
And you know why, right? You understand why they didn't bring up Activision. There's nothing they can say.
No, he was talking about Hadoop.
I was talking about Hadoop, but I understand why they didn't.
Hadoop. Sorry.
I actually
in the
don't
notes we have
understand why.
Activision. Okay, so Activision, the deal is probably not going to close till 2023, right? So what can you ask them right now?
What could you ask him? Well, I don't know. It was the big blockbuster announcement of the century. I mean, it feels like someone would have. How will this impact your guidance of blah blah blah? Whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
Or,
you can't.
So
it's not approved, so they can't even talk about it.
I was going to say. Okay, I was literally going to say that. I'm surprised no one asked, but you're right. The reality is Microsoft technically can't talk about this.
They could have asked about. When is Leo going to get an Xbox Series X? You could have asked him that. Did they ask about the chip shortage or hardware issues?
While you were reading the ad, I saw a thing that Xbox Series X bundles were available at some retailer, but they were already sold.
It's already gone. That's what happens. 60 seconds later, boom, they're gone. That's all right.
When you do ads, I research Xbox Series XS
what Leo can't buy.
Just to see what's going on.
Back.
Well, you never know. Someday.
But I am curious. So nobody asked about chip shortages because people are now saying. I just saw a study report that said we only have 5 days of chips ahead, and that, that's not just for computers, that's for cars and everything else, but, and that it may not be solved for years. So I'm surprised nobody asked them about that.
I think somebody asked, they gave just some usual
There's nothing
blah,
they
blah,
could
blah
say about
answer,
that either.
Well, but Microsoft primarily is not a...
But they make Surface and they make Xbox. So.
They do.
Yeah, but those are such small. I mean, by volume, those are very small parts of the business, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but it could. At one point, the shortage was affecting their servers and their own data centers.
Right.
Like they couldn't get servers, right? And they couldn't get parts for servers.
They're customers as well as sellers. Yeah.
They are.
But we should talk about Teams.
We should.
Yes, because Teams, of course, is all that really matters to Microsoft these days.
Well, not anymore, Leo. As it turns out, that has slowed dramatically. So now we're going to move on to something else.
Yeah, it has.
What?
So I was very surprised they publicly talked about this number. So yesterday they said, we've surpassed 270 million monthly active Teams users. Okay, so that sounds huge, right? But the last number we had was 250 monthly active users, which was July of last year. So from July till December, they added 20 million, right? 20 million active users, which given how fast Teams was growing at the start of the pandemic, that is a radical slowing.
I did not do this. I'm lazy, but someone should make a graph that shows the growth rate, and what you'll see is that it is. Yeah, but it's still growing, but it's slowed dramatically.
When you get to those kind of numbers, there's only
the other number to look at is Office 365 commercial users, and we don't have a recent number for that. But all I remember is up until like a certain point, the percentage of those users who had Teams for free weren't using it, right? Like it was like surprising how few of them were using Teams, even though it was built into their subscription.
We're probably one of those,
right?
Yeah,
right.
Because they're using Slack or something else.
Or they just are like, you know what?
We don't need
Teams,
it.
I know I'm supposed to be using it, but blah, right? And so I just was very surprised they went public with this number. In July, they switched how they looked at the number. They used to call out daily active users, and then they switched it to monthly active users, which is a sign already like they're trying to hide something, right? Like they're changing the metric. And then if you looked at their executive compensation numbers, which were in like a 10K form last year, you could see Teams was starting to slow down, and their executives are being, docked basically for the slowdown because they had a predicted number and then they had the number they were making and it wasn't the same. So I'm like, it can't grow forever, but it is kind of surprising to me it's not growing faster. It is.
Well, I mean, look, we used to talk about Microsoft's revenues in very rough terms and say, it's a long time ago, so this is out of date. 60% of the revenues came from business customers, 40% from consumers. It's probably skewed more toward businesses now. Yeah. That user base has to be much higher than 270 million. It has to be.
Yeah, it is. I forget what the last number is. I'll try to find it because it was.
Yeah, it has to be.
Higher.
Now, out in the world, it's fair to say a lot of people, a lot of companies are using Slack. They're using other things. I mean, that's, of course, the competition is occurring. Yeah. So that's part of it. And Microsoft hasn't talked about the Office 365 commercial seat number in, if not quarters, years. It's been a long time, like she said. So we don't know where that's at. But
okay, well, maybe I'm wrong here. I'm looking at Office 365 IT pros. They said Office 365 commercial. The number of users is likely 280 million. Okay, so it isn't radically different. I'm wrong.
That's why they're putting it in Windows 11. You have to grow somewhere, and I guess if it's not going to happen in business, right.
Yeah, that's their estimate that it was in July last year. It was like 280 million users. So 250 million and 280 million. That wasn't bad. Like, okay, I'm very wrong about that.
So Microsoft commercial revenue, off the top of my head, I think it was up 19%. There's a thing going on in the Office part of Microsoft's business where, as the user base shifts to subscriptions away from on-prem software or whatever, their revenues actually kind of go down there short term, but the goal obviously is over time to make it up in volume. I don't understand money, but there is a financial thing going on there. So that's interesting. It would be. I mean, we don't know what the number is now. We can assume it's 300 something. Whatever. It's not 280 today.
Number. No, right. It should be higher. Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Okay. I thought that was a big discrepancy, but no, I guess not.
There was also the big announcement about them making a free tier of Microsoft Teams available in the most recent quarter. I don't think that was done altruistically. It might have had something to do with, this slowing down, right? And I made the point at the time, you're better off spending the $5 a month on the basic version of Microsoft 365 because you get all this other stuff, including some things that would impact Teams. But Microsoft does, in fact, make a free version of Teams now. And this has to be why.
Oh, actually, it's not free. The one you're talking
No,
about.
it's not. Oh, low cost. I'm sorry, low cost. I'm sorry.
Low cost. Right, for
Right,
SMBs,
sorry.
right? And
Yep.
yeah, I agree with you. That was because of lawsuits, probably as much as anything.
Oh,
right?
that too. I'm sorry, that too. Of course.
Yeah.
But the timing is interesting because it happened within the quarter where they finally announced a new Teams number, and it wasn't maybe as high as we thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Anyway, I thought the teams numbers were very interesting, and the fact that it is slowing.
Yeah.
Like we say, part of it's because it's getting to be a bigger and bigger base, but there's more going on there. I think we keep talking about this Teams 2.0 overhaul that they keep promising or that we keep hearing about, right? But we haven't seen it. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? If Teams was easier to use, I think a lot more people would just spin up a Teams meeting instead of going to Zoom. I think, right? It's just hard to use.
If Teams was more easy to use, it'd be called Slack, Mary Jo. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Or Zoom, right?
Or Zoom, yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, that's it, right? That's the earnings in a nutshell.
I would say so.
See, we made it fun and painless.
Made it fun.
Fun and painless.
Paul and Mary Jo make earnings fun.
Take your medicine with a little bit of sugar. You'll be fine.
You'll love it. All right, quick break. More to come in just a little bit, including, I think we've got a little Xbox news, some Surface Duo news. Our show today, sort of news, brought to you by Progress. Hey, who isn't for progress, right? But when I'm talking progress, I'm talking a suite of apps that everybody needs for their growing enterprise. There are pain points these days in business. Progress has been enabling enterprise experiences for decades. They know what business needs to thrive. Most companies don't have the resources to invest in technology. They don't build it themselves, right? They don't have giant IT teams. But you still need to use technology, especially to create differentiation. You just have to do it with a smaller budget. That's why Progress is a great place to turn. With Progress, any organization can achieve the level of differentiation that's critical in today's business environment. Whether you're an IT professional concerned about networking and infrastructure, security and compliance, Progress has a solution for you. I'll give you a couple of them. Move It. You know Move It, right? Their managed file transfer program gives you control, security, and visibility over all file transfer activities, which means you can transfer confidential data through insecure channels and not open up your organization to liabilities. It actually is amazing. With Managed File Transfer Solution, you gain insight into who has access to your files, if the file was accessed, and when, protecting your most precious data. There's the WhatsApp Gold Network Monitoring, which allows you to monitor networks, applications, and devices, both in the cloud and on-prem. There's Kemp LoadMaster Load Balancer, next-generation load balancing and application delivery for private, public, and hybrid cloud. Everybody knows Flowmon, I know, their network intelligence solution. It's a network performance monitor and network detection and response solution. And Sitefinity, have you heard of that? That's their digital experience platform. Lets you build digital experiences across channels to improve your business agility and to foster personal relationships with visitors. There are so many great tools in the Progress stable under the Progress umbrella. Progress has the technology you need to secure, analyze, and integrate your applications, network, and processes. Find out more. Download a free trial. Progress.com/twit. Don't miss out. PROGRESS. Progress.com/twit. Get your very own Progress swag bag. Got to have the swag bag. Progress.com/twit. We thank them so much for supporting Windows Weekly. And you support us by using that address. That way they know you saw it here. Progress.com/twit. Moving right along on our Windows Weekly rundown, it looks like Microsoft 365 is next.
So I brought this up in the pick of the week a couple weeks ago, but now I have a little more information about this. So Monarch, the thing that also is known as One Outlook, Microsoft's attempt to bring all its various Outlook desktop clients together and create them so that they're all based on the same code base. That effort is moving forward. Last leak we had about that was from Windows Central last year, saying it was going to happen last year. But, there's a pandemic and, stuff gets delayed. So, yeah, it seems like it's about to happen this year instead. And I'm hearing that we might hear a big announcement from Microsoft about this in March, late March, early April timeframe. That they may go public with it and say, hey, we've got this thing we've been working on called One Outlook, and we're trying to bring together all our different clients. It's going to look a lot like Outlook for the web looks like right now, but this will be the client for the web, Mac, Win32. It'll work on Intel, ARM. It's going to be a single code base that'll work everywhere and be basically the same Outlook in one place. It won't be the same Outlook as on mobile. So there's also products on mobile called Outlook that aren't really Outlook. They're a Comply technology that Microsoft bought, but they rebranded everything Outlook just so it would look like there was one Outlook, even though there were many Outlooks. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at with this. I'm hearing that it could go to insiders late March, early April. By July or August, that it could go to insiders in the slow channel. And then the idea is when the next version, the next feature update of Windows 11 and Windows 10 come out in around October, or at least the fall of this year, that there'll be the new Outlook pinned to that product so that you'll have the option to use it in place of the mail and calendar apps that are built into Outlook. Built into Windows now. They're not going to force you and say you have to use this Outlook in place of the built-in mail and calendar, at least not yet. But I think that the idea will be, let's get people to try it. Let's get people excited about it. Let's pin it there and let people say, oh, look, there's an Outlook here. Let me try it out and see how it is. Yeah, I like that they're not going to try to force it on people immediately because especially for Outlook Windows users, they're very attached to their Outlook, and there are a lot of features in there that are not going to be in the Outlook web client. And I think using a carrot versus a stick approach and doing a gradual migration is a good idea.
These guys, they're going to need therapy when this change happens.
They are. Yeah.
So we're going to hear howls of pain.
I think so. I'm excited, though, because I think the mail and calendar app, so there are some people who love the mail and calendar app that's built into Windows. I find it very frustrating and limiting.
Yeah, there's no accounting
and I would
for
love
taste.
I would love to see Outlook replace that, like if it was real.
Oh, yeah, like today.
Amazing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
A PWA version of Outlook.com would be better.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway,
So
that's what I'm hearing from my contacts.
I'm excited that you
where
wrote
we're
about
at.
this. I get questions about this all the time. There's not a lot of info out there.
No.
I'm glad to see there are plans to put it in Windows 11, et cetera, et cetera. So
the funny part is a lot of people inside Microsoft are using Monarch One Outlook.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay.
That's where they've been testing it. They've been testing it inside, right? So I periodically ping the administrator of the Outlook at Microsoft. I'm like, hey, could I get in on this? And they send back, no. But I'm like, you can't blame me for trying. I'm going to keep paying them. They send me a nice little polite note. You are not granted access to this. No. And I send back a little appeal, and nothing ever comes back. It just goes into the abyss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Surface Duo. Ooh.
Yeah, so
I can't believe you put this in the notes. I thought you hate this product.
It's just still news. I mean, it's still a Microsoft product. I mean,
it is.
A year and a half ago-ish, Microsoft released the original version of Surface Duo based on Android 10, but a month after Android 11 had come out. And so they promised they would provide an Android 11 upgrade by sometime in 2021. And 2021 came and went, and that never happened. And they made it available 2 days ago, I think, yesterday, the day before. You have to have an unlocked device. It has to be in the United or North America or Europe, I think. I'll just remind people, Android 12 came out 6 months ago. I don't know. So, the lack of support on the software side for the Duo is one of its Achilles heels. Cynically, a lot of people, and myself included, aren't really expecting much more in the way of updates. I don't know, Android 12 ever. It maybe never happens. I don't know.
I feel like
12L? right? Wasn't that supposed to be the one everybody thought was going to?
Yeah, because that's more for those
Yeah.
bigger screens. I just feel like Duo is so different from your regular run-of-the-mill Android phone that it's just hard for them to keep up with Android. I mean,
they only make one phone. So, regarding 12L, I think it's reasonable for Surface Duo 2 to get that sometime this year for sure. And be included in the beta as well, right? Because that's one of the things they're running through right now. That would be appropriate, and I hope that happens. So the original version, I hope so. But I would just prep yourself for for disappointment there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
prepare.
Did you also see? Wait, there's one more Duo thing I just saw.
Okay.
Duo 2, I believe, got an update to the Europhone app that lets it actually manage apps. Remember, that was just a feature that was supported on Samsung phones?
That's right.
And it wasn't even supported on the Duo, the Your App managing of your apps and manipulating of your apps, right? And now I think it's just the Duo 2 that got
just so people understand that, it's controversial because Microsoft makes their own hardware. Why wouldn't it get the stuff first? They have a partnership with Samsung that predates the Duo. Yeah. And, we don't know how long that's going to last, but your phone features often come first to Samsung. That's been the way it's been for the past couple of years, actually. So, anyway, it's good that it's expanding to Duo too.
Not just first, just like they worked way better on Samsung.
And sometimes it's only on Samsung now. That's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
You already talked about Surface Laptop.
That came up earlier. Yeah.
NVIDIA is, it seems like, preparing to walk away from the ARM acquisition, which
makes sense, right?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed.
Every company that licenses no one, so they're going to IPO. That's the plan now. So, and this is a Bloomberg report. It's not confirmed by any company, but Microsoft, Google, Apple, whoever, Qualcomm, everyone complained. Regulatory bodies from around the world, the UK, the United States, the FTC just got involved fairly recently trying to block this. The UK is looking at it for national security reasons, which is kind of interesting. And so the question has always been, NVIDIA to me, it seemed like an okay company for this to, for them to have this. But if not NVIDIA, then who or what, I guess. And, maybe the answer is ARM remains its own company. And so supposedly, according to Bloomberg, the plan now is for them to spin it off in an IPO, and then they can be a standalone company that anyone could buy now because they'll have shares. So maybe there could be a hostile takeover, and one of those terrible companies like Google or somebody could take them. I don't know. So right, but that's.
Oh well. Okay.
See what you get.
This is all because SoftBank, which owns ARM right now, really wants to get it out of their portfolio.
Yep. I always forget SoftBank owns it.
Yeah. I mean,
which doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
And just it's like just another.
I just point out, SoftBank is a Japanese, right? We don't know a lot about this company per se, as far as the parent company of ARM, but I don't think there are any negative reports out there about them doing terrible things and harming ARM in any way.
They haven't been selling it off into pieces and stuff like that. So I guess it's fun. Intel's EU antitrust conviction.
Yeah, this is crazy. So just to give you like a little insight into how my brain works, I see a headline like the European, I think it was General Court. Let me just find the actual story and I can tell you exactly what it is. European General Court overturns an antitrust decision against Intel, reversing what was a record €1 billion fine in the process. I see that and I think, I remember this, right? So I'm going to search through the stuff I've written on Throughout.com to find.
You've got a very good memory.
Well, no, this is a big story. I mean, so the thing is, this happened in 2009.
Yeah, this is a long time
This is not from 5. I've only been at this site for 6 years. It's not on Throughout.com. And I was like, oh, that's right. Because when this happened, this was in the wake of Microsoft's antitrust stuff in the EU. And Intel took a different tact, right? Learning from Microsoft, they just kind of went with it and everything. But the interesting thing is they've been fighting it ever since. And basically, they have kind of won again and again and again. And it's a very complex, but the ruling is incredibly complex. Of course it is. It's the EU. But basically, They have argued to the European Commission, the EU Court of Justice, and now the EU General Court, that evidence was ignored all along the way, and that the proof that the rebates that Intel offered to PC makers 20 years ago, by the way, 20 years ago, that were originally deemed abusive and capable of that foreclosure effect, which is a term I learned about because of Microsoft, in this case to AMD, not true. So they're reversing this decision. This is like 20 years old. So here's the thing. This is what's beautiful about this. This is what I love about Europe the most. This can still be appealed.
Oh, no, it's not over.
This isn't necessarily, this could go on another 8 years.
Oh, God.
We won't even be using, we'll be using light, as a computing power source by the time this thing concludes. It won't even matter anymore. Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, this is the problem with court actions. They just take forever.
Crazy.
Right, but that's an unusually long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Just one more Intel thing. So I mentioned the Intel we might not need Pluton thing, which I think should be more of a story, by the way, but whatever. That's one thing. Intel, since Pat Gelsinger took over, has been announcing an expansion of their manufacturing capabilities at a time when no one is really doing this, right? They really see this as an advantage. They're going to temporarily use third-party fabs when they have to, but the goal is they want to have all this advanced manufacturing capability for themselves, and they want to sell it to other people too. And we know they're doing stuff. They're expanding their existing facilities in New Mexico. I think there was a thing in Arizona as well. $80 billion investment in Europe for 2 different facilities. And now they've announced they're going to invest at least $20 billion in Ohio. And that could actually grow significantly depending on how it goes. So lots of jobs involved, obviously, not just temporary construction jobs, but actual jobs, at the fab that they're building there. And this, let's see if I can find the numbers here. 1,000 acres in Licking County outside of Columbus could support up to 8 chip factories, Intel says. So they're building one. They're promising that. But this investment could grow to over $100 billion over the next decade.
This is
successful.
This is Pat Gelsinger's big gamble, is what this is.
Yeah, it really is. Yep.
Because, and Ben Thompson writes a lot about this in Stratechery. Intel, which kind of, I think, stumbled by being an integrated company, doing both design and fab for their chips for years, while other companies like ARM and NVIDIA, Apple, would design it, but then have TSMC or other companies build it. Intel, Gelsinger announced this, remember, a couple of months ago, is going to try to kind of split the baby, do both. They're building factories to be a fab for companies like Apple and NVIDIA and ARM, and that's what this Ohio factory is. But they're also they're still contracting capacity from TSMC to make chips for the design arm. So it's almost as if Intel's splitting into 2 different companies. It's a big gamble. Actually, it's a very interesting gamble.
It makes some sense to me. Just 2 things that are kind of Microsoft related to this. We know Qualcomm, by the way, has already said yes to this. They're going to probably sign on to Intel's manufacturing capabilities. It makes sense for a company like Qualcomm to have multiple sources for this,
especially
kind of thing.
Sources in the U.S.
Yeah,
and that's what Intel's gambling on, of course.
So that's smart. I mean, I would say manufacturing anything in the United States probably expensive, but then again, they're doing it in Europe too.
Chips are expensive, no matter what. I don't think there's a cheap way to make chips.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, as Ben points out, is that by using TSMC to make their own chips, Intel is, in a way, funding a competitor. They're helping TSMC build their capacity.
Right. That's right. But you know what? I don't know. I think more of we're in the middle of an era where we can't get chips.
Right.
I mean,
that's the bet.
This is smart. The other thing, just for Microsoft guys to kind of put this in perspective, this thing Intel is doing right now, Intel's historic strength, if you will, is what sunk Nokia, right? So Nokia, alone among phone makers by the end of the run there, had facilities all over the world for manufacturing their phones, not their chipsets, but their phones. And what that is tons and tons of employees, all of which have high salaries, health benefits, legacy, retirement plans and things like that. Like this is why the Nokia we know and love sort of, and was bought by Microsoft and now is gone. I know there's a new Nokia, doesn't exist anymore because of this. So and I think that's the bet that Leo is
Yeah. It's
referring
interesting.
to in a way because this could go either way for Intel, for sure.
But it's not going well without a big change anyway. So, they needed to do something. Gelsinger is a chip designer. That's the other thing that's interesting. He did the 486. So he came back to Intel, and I think he wants them to be a great chip design firm once again. And they've kind of fallen behind there.
This might be like Jobs returning to Apple.
Could be.
It might be the best thing that ever happened.
Could be. And, I think it's gutsy, and I think it's probably had to be done. So it'll be good to watch. But that's the problem with building these factories. $20 billion. Yeah. They're expensive. Yeah. Very expensive. All right. Little break, and then I would love if you would talk about Xbox, Paul, as long as possible.
I do have some stuff.
You do. Xbox coming up. Let's start with Halo Infinite, because I think it's a success story. Yes,
it is a success. So Microsoft, separate from the 20 million announcement we mentioned earlier, had tweeted out, "Hey, by the way, this is the biggest Xbox launch in history. Biggest Halo launch in history," and without even knowing what the number is, because there's no numbers for any of these other things anyway. Who cares? Of course it is, right? So there are two big differences between Halo Infinite and every other version of Halo that's ever come out before it. The first one is it's available for free. Like, Halo multiplayer is free for everybody all the time. So a lot of these people aren't even paying for Halo. So that alone, I think, makes it obvious that this always will have been the biggest launch, assuming a certain level of quality and all that stuff. The other thing is, this is the first version of Halo not to be tied to a specific console version. It's available across all 2 console generations on Xbox. It's available on PC. It's available through Game Pass, which makes it available to people who don't want to pay for the game outright. It's available in Xbox Cloud Gaming with a streaming service, which means you could be playing Halo right now on an iPhone, an iPad, an Android handset, anything that runs a web browser, including a smart TV probably, a PC, and a console as well, right? You could stream it on those things as well. So, I mean, a little asterisk on that one. I mean, of course, you kind of stack the deck here, right? I mean, like, obviously, this thing's going to be the biggest launch. It's just the availability is so much broader. I will say the little negative part to this statistic is, I mentioned earlier, 18 million players on Forza Horizon 5. Forza Horizon 5 does benefit from Game Pass, so it is there in game streaming, but there's no free component to it. So it is interesting that Forza, a game that is excellent, it's a great game, but Halo is iconic. I mean, that those two things are that close, I think speaks really well to Forza and that franchise. And I think it was smart of them to, place it in Mexico, frankly. That's a great location, just
Is it in Mexico City?
Yeah, it does take place in Mexico.
Zoom around the Zocalo?
I don't know if it's Mexico City, but the locations are all in Mexico.
That's good.
Yeah, so this one is probably the bigger news in a way, is obviously with the Activision stuff, right? There's a lot of questions swirling around. Sony was like, hey, we have certain agreements with Activision. You're not going to put a stop to that, obviously. And it's like, well, obviously, that's a legal agreement. So there's not much that Microsoft or Phil Spencer or anybody can really say about this thing ahead of the actual clearing of the deal. But Phil Spencer has been saying a lot. So he does say, he's like, I talked to Sony. We're keeping Call of Duty on PlayStation. There's still a gray area there. There's been more recent reports where maybe the next 3 versions of Call of Duty will be on PlayStation, and then we'll see. I don't know. But I don't think it makes any sense not to put it on PlayStation. I might talk about that a little bit more in a second. But there was also a deal where Activision Blizzard CEO, Bobby Kotick, that great human being who will have a statue someday, had a fireside chat with his employees. There's been a lot of sexual harassment stuff going on, workplace violations, et cetera, as we know at Activision. This guy showed up 7 minutes late for a 30-minute meeting and only spoke for 16 minutes. But he did say the transition is going to be smooth because Microsoft is committed to keeping as many of Activision's people as possible. That's a concern too, right? Are they going to lay off like half the staff or whatever? And supposedly not. And we'll see. I think I don't know if anyone remembers the employee figure over there. I think it's in the 10,000 range. They have a lot of
10,000.
10,000, yeah. And then he has dealt with his legacy, sort of like he's going to stick around for the transition. I'd be happy to stay along after that. I think we all know that's not going to happen. So that's whatever. That's cute, but he's going to be gone. And just regarding this platform exclusive thing, or the specific issue of Call of Duty, which will eventually, if the deal goes through, become a Microsoft title. Should Microsoft or will Microsoft make that available on rival platforms? Right. If you look at the video game industry, going back to actually the beginning of the video game industry, things like Atari in the beginning, they had games like Pac-Man and Asteroids and Missile Command that were huge. And over time, they would make those games available on other platforms. But, you sort of thought of those as Atari. Nintendo did this with the NES in the beginning. They had very specific games only on that platform, Super Mario Brothers, right? It never came on Sega. It was never on anything else. They kept it to themselves. It's always been a strategy. So Sony has done this. And Sony has wielded exclusive games as a weapon against other, against Nintendo and Microsoft, frankly. So, and they've been very successful. They have won, let me think about this. Well, actually, Nintendo technically won the Wii generation there with the PS3 and the Xbox 360, but they won the previous generation handily. And part of that has to do with Microsoft ineptness, but part of it has to do with this exclusive strategy. But as games move to cloud gaming, I think this becomes less of a problem, right? Because games run everywhere. I just mentioned you can play Halo on a phone, right? So yeah, it's exclusive to Xbox, but as long as gamers can get it anywhere, I think that matters less. And if Sony offers a similar subscription service, which is expected to, they're going to update their PS Now stuff, you'll be able to play Sony exclusives on any device as well. And so I think the era of platform exclusives doesn't go away, but I think it's going to change dramatically and become more gamer-centric, and I think that's good for everybody. So I know everyone's worried about Call of Duty on PlayStation. I think PlayStation's too big to ignore, and PlayStation is so firmly associated with Call of Duty, to my chagrin, that I just don't see that going away.
It's almost a math problem. Does Microsoft make more money by making COD exclusive and thereby selling more Xboxes, or do they make more money by continuing to sell Call of Duty on every platform?
Yeah.
That math's obvious, right?
That math is very easy today. You make it available everywhere because you don't make money on consoles.
That's how you make the most money.
You'd be better off selling it on PlayStation because Sony can lose money on the consoles.
Yeah,
However,
let them. Yeah.
As you move to cloud, you kind of don't care anymore. So if you're going to say, well, Call of Duty is going to be exclusive to Xbox now, that statement means something very different 5 years from now than it did 5 years ago.
True.
Right. So, we'll see.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe if you say you have to have Game Pass to play Call of Duty, maybe that does make them enough money to make up for the loss of sales on PlayStation. I don't know.
We live in a world where Sony and Nintendo will not allow Microsoft to bring Xbox Game Pass to their consoles, right?
Well, that would be one way to leverage that, wouldn't it?
That's right. And then, by the way, that might have had something to do with this purchase, right? Make those games as broadly available as possible. So we'll see.
You want to make Game Pass the dominant platform. You do make them exclusive. You say, look, you want to play these great games?
That's
Game Pass is the best deal.
But you know what? This is the fighting is occurring at the right level, at the corporate level. So in the end, gamers benefit. If I want to play Call of Duty, whatever, 2023 or whatever it is, and I own a PlayStation and I can get Xbox Game Pass on there and get it that way,
that's fine.
I don't think I care.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think that's the bottom line from a point of view of a user. So. It's going to be everywhere. One way or the other, it's going to be everywhere. You might have to get a Game Pass subscription.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so I think things are changing in the gaming world, so we'll see how that plays out.
But none of this means anything until the deal closes. You guys still bullish on that deal closing?
Yep.
Yeah, I am.
You're both pretty clear.
I'm going to hold the boombox over my head playing We Are the Champions when it happens.
And finally, I guess, Google Play Games on Windows.
Right. So some number of months ago, Google announced in a very strange way, a very mysterious way, that they were bringing Game Pass games, Android games, to Windows. They didn't really say how. There was a suggestion there would be an app. They were very specific, not working with Microsoft. This has nothing to do with Microsoft's Android subsystem that they've been talking. This is us. We're doing this. And this past week, they did release a very early preview version of it in 3 places. I think it was Hong Kong, Taiwan, and somewhere else in that area. So I can't see what it's like, but apparently it is what it sounds like. It's an app you download over the web for Windows, and that app hosts the games that you can download and play They are Android games. They're not streaming, so there has to be some emulator subsystem side. I just don't know how it works, but it is available now in an early preview. So that suggests, or I would hope, it is coming to other countries more broadly in the near future. So interesting. It's an interesting little kind of thing in there. And by the way, Google of course makes Stadia. Stadia hasn't been doing too well. A lot of questions there about whether they transition to being like the back-end service for other game studios or something, and they get rid of the direct-to-consumer thing. Gaming on Android is huge, so bringing Android gaming to Windows and I think to the Mac eventually, I think that makes tons of sense. So we'll see what it looks like, but interesting.
We survived, Mary Jo.
We did. Whew. Sriracha joined me. He knew I was in pain.
The cat can tell when you need comfort.
He did.
You seem to have a heightened level of stress.
He's like, oh, I got to come help.
Like a service animal. What do you call this? Like a comfort animal?
Comfort. He's my comfort.
Yeah.
Well, you can get some more comfort while we start the Back of the Book segment, ladies and gentlemen, with Paul Thurrott's App Pick of the Week. And it's fair enough. You can pick your own apps. It's okay.
It's not every day I get to pick my own app. So last week I hope to deliver this by next Wednesday, and I felt like I just missed it, but I got to tell you, the ordeal I've had since then, getting this thing up and running, suggests I was being a little overly optimistic. I required a lot of help from Raphael in a lot of things, but this is the first, well, technically the second and most basic of my Notepad alternatives. This one was written in C# using Windows Forms and the .NET Framework 4.72, I think. It is a C# conversion of the original Visual Basic version of the app I wrote about a year and a half ago. I've always intended to make it available publicly on GitHub, so I've now done that. So if you're a developer, you can go to Visual Studio. You can clone the repository, you can bring down a local copy, you can run it, you can install it, you can publish it, you can modify it, you can make pull requests, I guess they're called. You can do whatever you want with it. I am in the next month going to update it myself, and I will document that process on my site. I'm just going to do a couple of minor, bug fixes. I have a list of things I want to fix. I have some modernization ideas. Frankly, you got to remember Windows Forms is 20 years old. Plus, it is the oldest of the technology I've used for this app. It is a very reasonable alternative to Notepad. It does everything Notepad does except for two major things. It doesn't support a lot of the weird text encoding formats that Microsoft's app supports, in part because Microsoft doesn't document that very well. And it doesn't support other languages than English, US English, and that's just me being an inept programmer. So that's one of the things I'm actually looking at is giving it locale support. So maybe. That's actually a big thing to change, by the way, but we'll see. It does have things Notepad doesn't have. It has word count built in. It has an autosave capability that you can enable. It supports themes, and you can arbitrarily change the color of the background and the text of the font, the font text, of the text font. So you can do all that stuff. So it is available. It's on GitHub. If you go to github.com/Thurrott, you should see it. And in the coming months, I will make the other versions available as well. So I made the Visual Basic version, like I said. I made a version in Windows Presentation Foundation, which I think is the best version, by the way. So that will be the cool one. And I think that's the one we can really modernize because it supports all the new WinUI 3 stuff, and there's some cool stuff going on with WPF. So that will be neat. And then I also made a version with Universal Windows Platform, which frankly is not a great software platform for productivity apps, but it's got some unique aspects to it. It's kind of interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to update that one, frankly, but I will at least make the source code available so you can play with that too. So.
And I know you're doing this because it's a learning project and it's part of your job.
Yes.
But I also feel, is this you kind of enjoy it? Do you look forward to the time you're going to get to sit down and work on this, or?
Yeah. Yes.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah. It's almost obsessive.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's okay to admit that, Paul. It's okay.
And I like to.
Let it out.
There's a troubleshooting aspect to it.
Yeah,
I get frustrated when I can't figure out something. I'm fortunate in that I have a friend, Raphael, who is an expert in all of these things. So he's been very helpful.
It's frustrating, but then when you do solve it,
oh boy,
what an endorphin rush, right? It's really.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, I had like a high DPI issue that I solved, and it was like it was just.
It feels good.
It was it's good.
Coding's fun.
Yeah.
Coding's fun. Now, since okay, I know you enjoy plugging your own stuff, but maybe you have another app pick.
I do.
Yeah.
Right. So this is interesting because both these app picks are available on GitHub. So a couple of years ago, a Microsoft engineer in the Azure group decided to take the source code release of File Manager, the original like Windows 3.1, NT 3.1 file, the old version of Windows Explorer, and make it available, update it and get it running and everything, and it works. And so you can actually download this from the store. I guess it's finished now is the point. This is the reason that this comes up now. If you go to the store and search for Windows File Manager, you will find it. You'll find that cute old, remember the file, what do you call this thing? Like file drawer, the physical file drawer.
The cabinet, yeah.
File cabinet, yeah. Yellow icon. And then it runs and it's just like a blast from the past. If you've been using Windows for any amount of time, you'll totally remember this thing. When Microsoft moved to Windows 95, File Manager was still included in the box, but they moved to what we now call File Explorer. I think it was called Windows Explorer probably back in the day. And it was considered inferior because it wasn't an MDI application. You couldn't have sub-windows. So you would have to open, and by the way, still today, this is the way we've been doing it for 25 years. You open multiple instances of the window, and then you can copy things back and forth. In File Manager, you can do that inside the application. And some people really like that. So technically, it's on GitHub. You could download this. You could fork it. You could do what people might do to my Notepad app. I got to tell you, running it the first time, I immediately thought, I have solved high DPI. This thing has high DPI issues. I wonder. Anyway, it's good. It's a cool.
Send them a pull request. Send them a little.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I have some ideas.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll do a Windows Form version of it or something.
You're in with the open source community. You're part of it. That's exciting.
That was one of the big questions I had. I was like, so I make this thing available, like,
can people modify it?
Well, can people like sell it? Could they? And like, he's like, yeah, basically. I mean, they have to. I used an MIT license, so he's like, yeah, they can. Right. As long as they keep your copyright in there. And I was like,
that's okay. That's okay.
It's a moment. It's a little gut check moment, Yeah. But then I realized this thing is so crappy. Nobody's going to sell it. Nobody's going to take it.
They'll improve it if they sell it. Yeah. Enterprise Pick of the Week time with Mary Jo Foley.
Right. So we were talking earlier about how the Windows Insider team doesn't always give us the most direction when we need it, to put it euphemistically. Well, the Dynamics team kind of does the opposite, right? Twice a year, they publish roadmaps for features that they're going to be rolling out in what they call Wave 1 and Wave 2 of their next versions of their products. So yesterday, they published Wave 1 2022 of Dynamics Power Platform and the industry clouds, which are those vertical clouds they sell for retail, healthcare, manufacturing, and such. These roadmaps are not for the faint of heart. The Dynamics one is 400 pages. The Power Platform one is about 150 pages. I'm not kidding. They're PDFs that you can download. And this is only some of the hundreds of features they're going to be adding to the products between April this year and September of this year. So yeah, a lot of these features are very incremental, of course, but it's pretty amazing they even do this. And this is designed more for like admins, implementers, people who are really into the granular aspects of ERP and CRM products. So if you are that person or you know that person, you probably want to download these. They're free. They're on Microsoft's website. They, just as a caveat, they don't include every feature. And as one of my Dynamics friends said today, not only do they not include every feature, they also have features in there that are going to get pushed to the next wave. So if you're counting on something that's in the roadmap showing up before September, don't think it necessarily will. It may be pushed to the Wave 2 set of features, which is like October until early next year. But anyway, if you care about Dynamics, if you care about all the different parts of that suite, if you want to know what's coming in Power Platform, so that's like Power BI, Power Apps, and what else is in there? Like the AI and bot stuff that they're adding to the Power Platform, you probably want to go check these out. They're very well done. You can click on the table of contents and skip just to the parts you want. I was trying to summarize it, but I gave up because who can summarize 400 pages in one blog post? I just said, if you care about this, read more
the rest.
here. And I just links on the website.
Smart.
So, yeah.
Very wise.
Yes.
Enterprise pick number 2.
Yes. So we were just talking about open source. And Microsoft is holding a virtual event on February 15th that they call Azure Open Source Day.
Huh.
It's free. They're going to be talking about a lot of interesting topics, even though this is like a marketing type thing. They said they're going to be talking about CBL Mariner, which is their own version of Linux that they built to host projects of their own inside Microsoft. They're going to talk about like Azure Hybrid Benefit, which is the way you can run your on-premises licenses in the cloud. They're going to talk about running Linux on Azure. And they say there's going to be a special announcement from Satya as part of this. I have no idea what that's going to be. If it's going to be something real, or if it's just going to be like, yeah, we love you, open source guys, you're great.
And do you know what those
anyway?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you know what those cows are on the logo there?
I do not.
That is a command line program called Cow Say, which gives you a fortune, and the cow says it.
I was wondering why there were cows.
I didn't like open source until right now, but I got to tell you.
This is why we love open source. Little things like that.
All right. So if you're interested in this, just Google or Bing using your favorite search engine, Azure Open Source Day, and you'll get a link, and you can just register for free and check it out on the 15th.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. You have been very patient, my friends, and it's time to eat your vegetables. No, it's time for the beer pick of the week. All right. So Paul thinks I do a lot of IPA picks for my beers. I actually don't. I try to mix it up quite a bit. But today, this is just all me being all.
She says announcing
IPAs.
an IPA.
The one thing better than IPA
is
There's
another
nothing better
IPA.
than IPAs.
Okay.
And
Two
one of my
IPAs.
favorite IPA one of my favorite IPA breweries in the world happens to be in New York, and their name is Other Half. So Other Half makes, like, when you go to their breweries, they have a big board inside the brewery, and like of the 20 beers on tap, probably 18 are IPAs, all different IPAs.
Wow.
Right. So they have a lot of them that they have named after things that are green in honor of hops. So they've got like cheddar, they've got cabbage, cheddar meaning money cheddar.
Oh, I was going to say, I
was literally like,
maybe it's French
if it is,
cheddar.
don't eat it.
Sorry,
Do not eat the green cheddar.
I had to explain that. And then they have broccoli. So they make a lot of beers with the name broccoli. I can tell you there's no broccoli in these beers. No, there is not.
That is a relief.
Yeah. Although the one I made for my pick today, Other Half Broccoli World Special Reserve, brewed on the occasion of the 8th anniversary of the brewery, which is this year. I have to say, when I had a sip of it, I thought I tasted broccoli. I did.
It's all
psychosomatic effects.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. Parasuggestion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you like double IPAs, you should definitely try Other Half. If you can get it near you, or when you come to visit New York someday in the near term or long term future. And here's the best part. If you're in Rockefeller Center, they just opened a tap room in the middle of Rockefeller Center. So you can go and you don't have to venture out into the wilds of Brooklyn way out. You can just go to Rockefeller Center and drink your IPAs right at a civilized counter with beautiful lighting. And
Yay.
We understand
like
your
a real
aversion to
person.
Brooklyn. Please come here instead.
I go to their tap rooms in Brooklyn all the time. They all know me when I come in. They're like, hey. I'm like, hey.
Do you walk over? How do you get there?
So when I go to Brooklyn, I
You
take
Uber?
the subway.
Oh, you Subway. Oh, nice.
Yep.
That's a tough
Yep.
walk.
It is that would be a long walk.
It's pretty,
but the
though.
tap room, new tap room is a 15-minute walk from my house, which is very dangerous.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Near the Microsoft store in New York, which is still there. It's right in the middle of everything.
Nice. Well, you've done it again, my friends. Managed to condense a huge amount of information to a mere couple of hours of goodness. Thank you so much. Paul Thurrott is at thurrott.com. The field guide to Windows 10 is available at leanpub.com. He's working on field guide to Windows 11. As soon as Microsoft finishes
I think I have my target date now.
What's your target date?
Why they might be this February update. What's the second week in February look like? Maybe.
Interesting. For Valentine's Day.
Exactly, for Valentine's
Nothing
Day.
says I love you like a Windows field guide.
That's a good slogan, I got to say. Yeah. Mary Jo Foley writes about Microsoft at her ZDNet blog, allaboutmicrosoft.com. Together, they unite to create this synergistic whole we call Windows Weekly every
That's
Wednesday.
whole with a W, by the way. Whole with a W.
Whole. You can join us, watch us do it live at twit.tv, actually live.twit.tv, every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 UTC. Look for the hole in the synergistic muddle. You can also get on-demand versions of the show at twit.tv/dubdub. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. Of course there is. And probably the easiest thing is subscribe in your favorite podcast app. That way you'll get it automatically. Listen to it at your leisure. People who are listening at their leisure can still interact with us. You don't have to go to irc.twit.tv or the Club Twit Discord. You can actually do it in our forums. We have discourse forums at twit.community. There's also a Mastodon instance at twit.social, and both are free and available to you, and I hope you will take advantage of that. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. If you're not a member of Club Twit, we really appreciate that support. $7 a month, ad-free versions of the show. You won't even hear this plug for Club Twit because you'll already be a member. You also get the Twit Plus feed, and there's some good stuff coming up. We've got a Georgia Dow fireside chat. Stacy's book club is going to be fun. We've got the Untitled Linux show, the Giz Fizz, all of that on the Twit Plus feeds. Actually, the Untitled Linux show has earned its own feed in the Twit Club. So if you're a Linux fan, you'll love that. And we have another show coming up. We'll tell you about that in the future. Lots of events as well. The Discord is also a great place to hang while you're listening to any of our shows. Please do that by going to twit.tv/club-twit. I guess that's it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly, Patch Tuesday edition.
Hey, you don't have to wait till the weekend to get the tech news you need. Join Jason Howell and myself, Micah Sargent, for Tech News Weekly, where we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news.